May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be pleasing to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Today, we hear all about transformation. Joseph's brothers, who have sinned egregiously against him, are reconciled to him and given a chance to start over. The Canaanite woman's daughter is healed, and we even see Jesus transformed. Usually, Jesus is the one who's doing the transforming, healing, teaching, speaking truth to those in power, challenging expectations and prejudices, performing miracles. But this time, Jesus is transformed. Up to this point in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus' ministry has been primarily, maybe only, in Israel. And it has only been to Jewish people. In fact, he says that he has only come for the lost sheep of Israel. So it's not entirely clear, given that this is his understanding of his ministry, why he has wandered into Canaanite land, why he has traveled into Gentile territory. But that's where we find him today, and that's where the Canaanite woman finds him. News of his mercy and his ability to heal and his power must have traveled far and wide, because she calls on his mercy. She even knows to call him Lord, Son of David. But Jesus is decidedly uninterested in doing what she knows he can do. First, he pointedly ignores her with silence. Then when his disciples plead with him to send them away, send this unruly woman away, he still ignores her, but just says, my ministry is not to her. When she comes to kneel before him in a gesture of humility and maybe even worship, he finally speaks to her, but only to insult her, with a common slur used against Canaanites, who were the historical enemies of Israel. He calls her a dog. Where so many others at this point might have given up hope and crumbled in despair, she does not. Instead, she responds cleverly to the insult, perhaps desperately, knowing that even a crumb of Jesus' power and compassion and mercy could give her all she needs. And it is then that something shifts for Jesus. It seems that he finally sees her. He finally truly acknowledges her. And he calls her a woman of great faith, and then performs the miracle that she seeks. This is extraordinary for her, but it's an extraordinary moment for him and for us as well. Because at this moment, he crosses a boundary that looked completely impenetrable. He begins to heal not only Gentiles, but enemies of Israel. And his mission from this point forward in Matthew shifts. And by the end of the gospel, Jesus is calling on his disciples to make disciples of all nations, to spread his ministry everywhere. This is a really uncomfortable story in many ways. We do not like to imagine Jesus treating someone in so much pain like this. And it's uncomfortable to think of Jesus needing to be challenged and transformed. That's not usually how we understand him or see him. But in some ways, this is really a beautiful moment, because Jesus models for us what it looks like to joyfully, gracefully accept transformation when it is offered to us. When the woman's clever response to his insult comes, he responds with amazement. And I completely imagine a smile and a laugh just breaking across his face as he is startled by her cleverness, by her faith, and becomes aware of a new understanding of his own mission and of the wideness of God's love and mercy. The community that this gospel came out of was likely wrestling with the question of how to treat outsiders, Gentiles, who wanted to join the community of Jesus followers. The story would have been pivotal for them. It's quite possible they would have recognized themselves in Jesus, as this persistent enemy of Israel kept trying to break into his ministry, as she insisted on inclusion, even if it meant just a crumb. And they might have related to his initial response to her. They may have used that insult themselves, and then been as startled as he was by her clever response. This story was meant to let them know that even their greatest enemies are to be included. And of course, it is also meant for us today. It reminds us that even those we despise the most, maybe even those who we think we have good reason to despise, are included in God's grace and love. We don't get to declare anyone outside of the grace and love of Christ. And now I want to talk a little about that crumb. When the Canaanite woman receives Jesus' insult, she makes a clever rhetorical move in turning it around on him. And in doing so, she demonstrates good theological understanding and great faith. But there is also something that is so heartbreaking to me in her response. She is willing to beg for crumbs. Perhaps it is her desperation as a mother with a deeply troubled child. Many of us can relate to that desperation when our children are hurting. She will take any morsel she can get that might help. Or perhaps it is that she is so used to being treated as less than human that she's willing to settle for only crumbs. I'm sure you can think of many people who are in that place, so beat down by life, or by prejudice, or by hardship, or by exclusion, that crumbs seem like the only possibility. And perhaps in addition to being amazed by the woman's faith, Jesus is also moved as he realizes this child of God should not be reduced to begging for crumbs. And in the end, he doesn't offer her just the crumb she asked for. He offers her a full seat at the table, calling her one of great faith, the greatest compliment he uses in the Gospels, performing the miracle she needs. And then perhaps the greatest compliment of all is that he takes it to heart and he shifts his entire ministry from this point forward. Now, unlike the Canaanite woman, Joseph's brothers really deserve only a crumb, if even that, from Joseph. If you've heard the rest of the story, they had left him for dead, sold him into slavery. These are not good brothers. And so when he reveals his identity as the long-lost brother they had so wronged, they must have been horrified to realize who they had just asked for help. And I imagine they're now feeling quite hopeless that any of that help is going to come. But Joseph, steeped in the mercy and love of God that he has received, does not offer just crumbs. He offers a feast in the midst of a famine. So the lesson here is twofold. From the Canaanite woman, we learn that no one is excluded from the love and work of God, including those who face extraordinary prejudice and oppression simply because of their God-given identities. We learn that even those that we despise are welcomed into the arms of God. And from Joseph, we learn that God's mercy and feast is for us and for all who don't deserve it. That is what God's grace is. Feasts when we deserve maybe not even crumbs. We may have learned for a variety of reasons that we are worthy only of crumbs. And today we hear that God offers us a feast. When we come to the communion table each week, we recognize that feast, that we are invited into the unending depths of God's love and mercy. We are invited to eat and drink our fill of God's love and God's mercy, of God's forgiveness, of God's grace, of God's compassion for each one of us. We are offered Christ's very self as we come to church. Offered Christ's very being and love to fill us, to transform us, to heal us, to inspire us, to make us whole. And then near the end of the service, we are sent out to share what we have received. God's table is not just for a select few. It's not just for the deserving. It's not just for those who we like. And it overflows with mercy and grace and love. It doesn't offer just crumbs. We are called to feast, to stuff ourselves, and then to offer it all of it, to everyone, even to our enemies, as Joseph does, as Jesus does. And then with Jesus, to be joyfully transformed by those moments that challenge us into even greater understandings of the wideness and depth and breadth of God's love. Amen.